There may be a small cemetery inside your home. Not the scary kind, more the quiet, deeply personal kind. A guitar resting in the corner of your room, covered with a thin layer of dust, like a paper reminder that you once wanted to become a musician. A stack of Spanish textbooks with the first pages underlined in passionate strokes, while the later pages remain blank, as if no dream ever made it that far. A folder on your laptop named Final Project Real. This time that you last opened, last year. Every time you see them, you don't just see objects. You see the version of yourself that once made a promise, and then the familiar feeling returns. I'm just not persistent. Society is more than willing to label it for you. They call you lacking grit, easily distracted, a jack of all trades, master of none. And if you're honest, there are nights when you call yourself the same. The cycle is always the same. You begin with a blazing fire. You watch videos, read books, buy the tools, make detailed plans. You truly believe this time will be different. But then as soon as things become harder, slower, less exciting, the feeling fades. The thrill disappears. The motivation evaporates. What remains is boredom and a familiar decision. And here's the uncomfortable question. Do you actually lack discipline? Or have you simply never understood how your brain works? If you think you're just someone who doesn't have what it takes, I need you to stay. Don't scroll away. Because what comes next might make you see that entire cemetery in a completely different light. Let's dismantle the myth gently but completely. You do not quit because you are incapable. You quit because your brain is chasing something very specific, and once it disappears, everything feels empty. There is a concept in cognitive science called the knowledge instinct. It is the drive to reduce uncertainty, to close the gap between I don't know and I understand. But here's the subtle twist. Your brain may care less about having knowledge and more about the speed of acquiring it. You are addicted not to mastery, but to acceleration. When you start something new, photography, coding, piano, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the learning curve is steep. On day 1, you know nothing. By day 3, you understand the basics. The rate of improvement is dramatic. That rapid gain triggers a powerful chemical response. Dopamine surges not because you are excellent, but because you are progressing fast. Your brain loves momentum more than outcome. It feels like falling in love. You stay up late, researching. You imagine a future version of yourself who has finally found it. This is what I call the novice high. But the novice high is a trap. Eventually, you grasp the core logic. You understand how exposure works, how chords are structured, how syntax fits together. The gains slow down. Improvement becomes incremental. The learning curve flattens into what feels like a boring desert. Welcome to the plateau. This is where your brain changes its tune. The novelty drops. The reward prediction error shrinks. Dopamine withdraws like a tide receding from the shore. And suddenly, what once felt magical feels heavy. Here is the fork in the road. A master stays. A dabbler leaves. We often label that departure as laziness. But laziness is the refusal to act. You are not refusing to act. You are refusing to act without fuel. Your brain has calibrated itself to chase rapid spikes of progress. When those spikes disappear, it interprets the task as no longer worth the metabolic cost. So you open YouTube. You start researching another hobby. You feel alive again. But I need to ask you something uncomfortable. Are you quitting because you truly mastered the foundations, or because your ego felt the first sting of incompetence? There is a difference between strategic quitting and emotional escape. If every time something gets confusing, you pivot to something shiny, you are not following curiosity. You are protecting your self-image. And this is where we have to talk about a small, powerful structure in your brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, the AMCC. Think of it as the willpower muscle, not a metaphorical one. A literal, measurable region that activates when you choose to do something you do not want to do. When a task is exciting, the AMCC stays quiet. When a task is boring, frustrating, or uncomfortable, and you persist anyway, it fires. If you consistently avoid discomfort, that region weakens. Not morally, not spiritually. Physically, neural pathways shrink from disuse, just like muscle fibers atrophy when you stop lifting weights. If every plateau has been an exit sign for you, your AMCC has never been asked to carry real weight. So now even a minor inconvenience, a difficult chapter, a confusing error message, a day where progress is invisible, feels unbearable. It is not that the task is impossible. It is that the muscle required to endure it has not been trained. Here is the hopeful part. The brain is plastic. The AMCC can grow at any age. Studies on older adults with extraordinary cognitive resilience show that this region remains thick and active because they spent decades pushing through difficulty. They kept lifting the weight. Meanwhile, a young, highly intelligent person who constantly escapes discomfort may have a weaker endurance system than someone twice their age. This is not an insult. It is an invitation. You do not need a personality transplant. You need progressive overload. If you walk into a gym and try to deadlift 500 pounds on day one, you will injure yourself and never return. The same applies here. When you hit that familiar moment, the boredom, the drop in excitement, the urge to quit, do not force yourself to grind for 4 more hours. That is ego lifting. Instead, apply what I call the 15% push. If you plan to read 10 pages and want to stop at 3, read 1 more. If you were practicing guitar for 20 minutes and feel done at 12, play for 2 more. That tiny extension is the repetition. That small act of defiance against your impulse is the signal to the AMCC. Adapt. Over time, those small reps compound. The plateau becomes survivable, then manageable, then normal. But we need another honest moment. Some of you watching this may have ADHD. And if you do, your dopamine system and executive function operate differently. Simply telling yourself to push through may not work. In fact, it may create burnout and shame. For the ADHD brain, internal grit must be supported by external scaffolding. You need visible task breakdowns, so progress is concrete. You need timers, so time has edges. You need body doubling to borrow focus. You need gamification to replace missing dopamine. This is not weakness. It is engineering your environment to match your hardware. Now let's address the final villain in this story. Boredom, intolerance. We live in an age of supernormal stimuli. 15-second videos, infinite scroll, sugar, instant feedback. Your brain has been trained to expect high-intensity novelty on demand. Compared to that, the slow grind of language learning or music practice feels like suffocation. It is not that the skill is boring. It is that your baseline for stimulation is too high. You need what I will bluntly call a dopamine reset. Not monk mode, not self-punishment, just stimulus control during focus sessions. Put your phone in another room. Remove background noise. Allow boredom to surface. We treat boredom as a red flag. But boredom is the clean slate required for deep encoding. It is the moment your brain shifts from consuming to creating. If you lower the noise, the signal returns. Here is my proposal, and this is where you must decide whether you are serious or just entertained. Choose one interest. Only one. Commit to 6 months. Not to become world-class. Not to monetize it. Simply to experience the plateau and stay. Your goal is to feel the dopamine drop, feel the weakness in your endurance muscle, and apply the 15% push anyway. Do not romanticize this. It will be boring. That is the point. If you complete 6 months, you will not just have a skill. You will have evidence. Evidence that the label dabbler was a phase, not an identity. Evidence that your curiosity was never the problem. Your strategy was download the guide. Do not save it for later. Download it now. Audit your interests. Choose your one thing. And when the plateau hits, because it will lift the weight. In the next chapter of this journey, we will talk about how to structure a life that honors multiple interests without sabotaging mastery. But first, prove to yourself that you can stay. One interest, no switching, no rebranding, no dramatic "this isn't aligned anymore" speeches. Just you, the plateau, and the 15% push. You are not trying to become exceptional. You are trying to become consistent. That is a much rarer transformation. And let me say something that might sting a little. If you cannot stay with one thing for 6 months, the problem is not that you have too many passions. The problem is that you are addicted to the feeling of potential. You love imagining who you could become more than doing the slow work required to become it. But this is fixable. That is the beautiful part. Once you push through one plateau, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a chronic quitter. You become someone in training, someone building endurance. So download the guide, choose your one thing, Start today, not next Monday. When the excitement fades, stay anyway. In the next video, we will talk about how to build a life that honors all your interests without returning to the graveyard. But first, prove you can lift the weight.